So now I have the pleasure to welcome Cathy O'Neill. She started working at the university. She did her PhD at Harvard University and a postdoc at MIT, and she taught at Barnard College. And then she joined different startups and the finance industry, but she was really disappointed, and that is why she joined the Occupy Wall Street movement, and she learned journalism, and she founded an organization specialized in algorithm, and she wrote Doing Data Science and Weapons of Math Destruction.
What for you bias in data and algorithms could impact democracy? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've been told this clicker doesn't work very well. Yes, it's true. So we're being told that algorithms tell us the truth, that they're objective, they're fact-based. I believe that myself when I went into finance. After I left my professorship of mathematics, I wanted to make the world work better. I, of course, went in just as the crisis occurred, and what I figured out was that algorithms can also harm. They can be mathematical lies, which is exactly what we found with those AAA ratings on the mortgage-backed securities, as you might remember, that they're not, in fact, fact-based. They're not giving us truth if there are other incentives, for example, for people to lie with them. And that's exactly what they did. And they lied, and it was successful because people are afraid of mathematics, because people are intimidated by math, which is an embarrassment and a shame to me as a mathematician, because I want mathematics to clarify the world, not to make things confused. But of course, that's what we're doing often when we build bad algorithms. We're obscuring our subjectivity, and we're calling it fact, but actually it's opinion. Algorithms are opinions embedded in code. I'm going to tell you what I mean by an algorithm, and this is my son, Wolfie, who loves Nutella. Because the point I want to make, and this is, I only make one point, it's this. We all use algorithms all the time. They aren't mathematical tests that we have to pass. They are things we do all the time, and we know how they work. We know how subjective they are. So the algorithm I want to talk about is the dinner I cook for my kids every night. So algorithms in general use historical information. We look for patterns of success in historical information. We look for patterns where initial conditions, what we start with, when do those initial conditions lead to success? So to build an algorithm, we need two things. We need that historical information, and we need a definition of success. So for me, the historical information is all the dinners I've ever cooked for my family. And of course, on a daily basis, I need the ingredients in my kitchen. And I already lied to you because I don't use all the ingredients in my kitchen. I don't use those little packages of ramen noodles that my teenagers love because I don't really think they're food. So I curate. I blind myself to the data that I don't care about. That's subjective, right? I'm choosing which data is relevant. And then after dinner, I decide, was this meal a success? And I decide whether the meal was successful depending on whether my children ate vegetables. That is not what my son Wolfie would have chosen, right? What that means is, not only am I imposing my agenda on my family meal, I want my kids to eat vegetables, but it means that the person who gets to impose their agenda is the person who has power. I'm the one with power in my family. My son is in charge of breakfasts, though. We do have a lot of Nutella at breakfast. When Facebook decides to optimize to profit, it is not optimizing to truth. And in fact, it optimizes away from truth. It optimizes to fake news, for example. What we have right now is we have a situation where the people building the algorithms are hiding behind a wall of mathematical authority. And they tend to be the very people who benefit from the system that they are creating. Now, I don't want to make it a completely scary story, because I do think we can do a lot better. and I'm going to talk about that. But I don't want to indicate that everything is fine, because there are really bad algorithms out there. I call them weapons of mass destruction. They're widespread, making important decisions about a lot of people. They're secret, they're mysterious. People don't understand how they're being scored. It's usually scoring systems. And they are destructive to the individual, but also to society. So for example, we have Kyle Beam, who had to take a personality test to get a job. Now that's actually, in the United States anyway, the majority of job seekers have to take personality tests. If they fail them, which they're not told about, then they never get to be interviewed by a human being. They never interact with a human. It's just a computer saying, no. Now on his test, he recognized some of the questions. He recognized the questions from a mental health assessment, the 5-factor model that he'd been given in a hospital when he was being treated for bipolar disorder. By the way, that personality profile that he was recognizing is the same one that Cambridge Analytica supposedly used on Facebook. So he recognized those questions. His father, who's a lawyer, by the way, unusual that someone applying for a minimum wage job in the United States has access to a lawyer, never mind his father. His father realized, hey, that's illegal. Under the Americans with Disability Act, you cannot be forced to take an exam, a health exam, including a mental health exam, in order to get a job. So his father has filed class action lawsuits against 7 companies that are all using this test, and that Kyle was rejected from in 7 different places. So he wasn't just prevented from getting that job, he was prevented from getting many, many jobs in the Atlanta area. And it's exactly when I say destructive to society, this is exactly what the law, the Americans with Disability Act, was meant to prevent. The systematic filtering out of an entire subpopulation from jobs. So this is the kind of thing that algorithms that are hiding behind their mathematical objectivity can start getting away with. And we were lucky to find this problem. I want to this is Roger Ailes, he founded Fox News 21 years ago. I want you to imagine that we build an algorithm for Fox News to hire people. If we did that, if I were hired as a data scientist for Fox News, I would use the historical information that was next to me, that was in front of me, the database of 21 years worth of people applying to Fox News. Now the reason I brought up Fox News as an example is because there have been enormous numbers of women coming forward saying that they were mistreated and badly treated. They left early, they got harassed, they left. But what does a machine learning algorithm do? Machine learning algorithm looks for patterns in the historical data. What in the past led to success? And if we define success by people who get raises, who get promotions, who stay for a long time, which is how we do these kinds of things, then by the bias in that data, the women, when we've trained this algorithm and we apply it to a current pool of applicants, it not only wouldn't pick qualified women, it would avoid qualified women. Because qualified women would be failures in that data set. It would be failures in that data set. Algorithms do not make things fair. Algorithms automate the past. They automate the status quo. If the status quo is perfect, that would be okay. But algorithms are inherently backwards looking. They do not evolve our society unless we make them evolve our society. If we blindly use the techniques of machine learning, all we're doing is repeating past mistakes. So for example, we're using in every city, every large city in the United States, we use hotspot policing, which is to say we look for the location of previous arrests to decide where to look for the next crime. But given the history of uneven racist policing in the United States, what that's really doing, think about the data that's streaming out of the historical data set, the historical arrest data set. It's very biased, it's very focused, concentrated in minority poor neighborhoods. So when we use that data to look for future crime, we are propagating that cycle of uneven policing. And we're calling it scientific. That's what I worry about is it's not just propagating the past, it's actually exacerbating the past in the sense that we now trust it too much. We have to stop trusting the algorithms. Right now we have data scientists, this one is from Stanford, Kozinski, who built an algorithm that he claims will figure out whether someone is gay based on their face. I don't think it actually works as well as he thinks it works. But it goes to show you, if you imagine how this could be used in other places, in other countries, to crack down on people for their sexual orientation. It doesn't actually, to be clear, doesn't actually have to work right now, because we are not demanding evidence. We are not demanding scientific evidence that something is working and it's fair to society. So that's one of the things, if nothing else, I want to point out, is that we should be setting standards now. We've seen the kinds of things that can go wrong. Standards for these algorithms, these powerful algorithms in particular, show me that it works. Give me evidence that it's fair. Right now in the United States, the ICE, which is the Immigration Services, has been asking companies like IBM, Microsoft, everybody, they've been asking them to build an algorithm to find terrorists, actually to vet visa immigration applications for future terrorist acts. I don't think this is scientifically sound, but these algorithms are going to be made, and the question is, are they going to be vetted? Are they going to be audited? Are we going to have any reason to trust them beyond the fact that they're called algorithms? We need more than that. At the very least, we need data scientists to stop considering themselves purely technicians and make the acknowledgement that what they're doing has an effect on society, that they have ethical obligations. Now, I believe in this, but on the other hand, I don't think it's sufficient. I think there's plenty of perfectly ethical people who work in companies where the business model is itself impossible to work within and be ethical. So they don't have power in those companies. So what are we going to do about that? We can't just ask for individual data scientists to make this field ethical. Right now, for example, we've been finding all sorts of examples where you have illegal kinds of profiling going on in advertising and Facebook. This comes from a ProPublica report that showed that it was possible for them to show advertising for housing, but not to black people, which is illegal, but it's being done right now. For that matter, we know all about the tailored political advertising that is allowing campaigns to show us what they want us to see. They know at this point more about us than we know about them. It's an asymmetry of information that has basically no stops, at least in the United States regulation at this point. What should we do? There's not enough time to go into everything, but at the very least we should be showing people why they're scored the way they are. If it's a score like a credit score or a different kind of score that's keeping us from jobs, keeping us from credit cards, keeping us from good insurance, if it's keeping us from opportunities in our life, we deserve an explanation for how they work and why, and what is the data that they're using, and is it correct, and if it's not correct, fix it. We at the very least should be asking for aggregate statistical understanding of how these algorithms work. So there's a recent piece that showed that all these facial recognition softwares work much better on white men than on black women. Now that's an important point, but my question is, why haven't the companies that built these algorithms already tested this? It's an embarrassment that we have no standards for the kinds of scientific tests that we are demanding. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Cathy. Many thanks for this interesting presentation. We have just a little few minutes to ask Manny a little question. What can we do about these algorithms? Where to start and what to expect?
There are three kinds of tests that I think we should start regulating. So the first type of test is before any kind of powerful algorithm is put into place, We have to demand evidence that it's better than the human process that it replaces. Believe it or not, we have algorithms all over the place that are being used without even checking to see whether they're better than what we already have. So we have to have this basic scientific treatment versus control framework. That's the first thing. The second thing is we absolutely need these aggregate tests on for whom does this algorithm fail? Does this algorithm fail more for women than for men? Does this algorithm fail more for immigrants than for native citizens? Does this algorithm fail more for people with learning disabilities than for people otherwise? And is that what we want? We have to define what we actually think is successful, and not just success for the people building the algorithms, but for everyone, for the public, for all the stakeholders that are involved. And the third thing is we absolutely have to look at long-term consequences of our algorithms. Right now we're throwing these algorithms out there, and when I say we, not we, the big tech companies are throwing algorithms out there because they make money off of them, not because they are long-term benefit to society. So we need to set up tests that monitor the externalities of these algorithms.
Many, many thanks,
Thank you.
Cathy.